certain items to make deadlines or basically turned in by the time that we need it. And so those approvals are sent out to the executive committee just to make that quick decision for us.
And they do a good job. They've gotten a lot of things passed me to an emergency basis. So I would entertain a motion to have the same executive committee reconfirmed. Anybody make that motion? I will. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And so it's clear, I have the proxy vote for the mayor, because he's at an easy day. He's gone high.
Thank you.
We have introduced the new board members, so let's go right to talking about the financial summary and money.
Okay. Financial summaries, there's one for adult, there's one for juvenile, no concerns at this point about either of those. Things are going along as expected. So far, we're at the beginning of the adult year, so much towards the tail end of the juvenile year. Does anybody have any questions about the financial summaries?
I'm just transferring some money around there.
Yep, so for the transfers, what happened was, as you all know, we end up doing a number of budgets for the year, because we do one for the grant cycle, we do one, and we turn in with that grant cycle, then we do, some more versions, and we start talking with county council. And then after we talk with them, the DOC gives us our actual figures for grants, so we end up having to change some things. And then after that, we get an actual from the county and what they plan to do, so we end up changing some things. So these transfers and the reduced appropriation all reflect changes we had to make after it was determined what the county was willing to do to help us from the county general fund. They were very generous and offered to help us pay some salaries so that our staff could have some raises and help pay them up to salaries before the next level. So that's actually what all three of these reflect those changes.
Questions? The transfers? Then I'd entertain a vote that we approve all three of the transfers. Everybody, make a motion? I will. Second? Oh. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Agreed.
Okay, I think that was the delay, so I'll go ahead and go through the Change Academy update. We did receive some funding to create the couch of the space of our stream at Change Academy, so you see it's $1,968. We'll be able to use for that program. Grateful to them for that. There's currently 6 participants, 1 intake waiting from DeKalb on the Eastern. So that goes up to 8 students for the semester. Under programming, just a review of the different programs. We are still going to be running that botany transition. That's the program that our staff took on to replace our attempted juvenile and our teach not go up. The botany transitions, we actually have the students do some surveys at the end of how they felt, and they actually were very positive. So we're going to do it again this semester and hopeful that it continues to be successful. Other than that, junior achievement is going to be coming in. Safety and Children's First Center is going to be coming in. We'll be talking about changing it. Honestly, these next 2 bullet points, because we was turning out the Google grants for that, and also an additional that I sent out.
You want to talk about that? You want to continue to get here?
No, we can talk about them. Did anybody have questions about the summary for change first? So I attached to your packets, and then also the email that I sent out our renewal of our request for funding from DOC for Change Academy. The only change we made to this from last year was that I am requesting to move $1,000 of the funding that we had done in previous years from electronic monitoring into Change Academy. We're finding the costs for Change Academy are going up, and so an extra $1,000 coming in the grant will be helpful with that. And we haven't needed the total of $2,000 for the electronic monitoring portion. of juvenile programming, in prior years. And so when we look at our past numbers, we decided 1,000 would be enough. If not, we will obviously do some transfers or whatever we need to do to make up for that. So I've attached the narrative, I've attached the state's budget documents. Does anyone have questions?
They voted on it, we'll get through that.
No, so for this grant, I have the approval from the board to submit, so I don't need a vote.
Alright, so we, have a motion, what we want to do is give approval for our grant application, which then is money, so we can help them change that. So I entertain a motion to approve the grant application. So moved. Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Alright,
Second grant application you saw is something that came up, sort of last minute. I've been informed that the criminal justice institute was going to have some money for juvenile programming, which they have been advertising as a large pot of money that's not being used. So we waited for that announcement to come out. I mean, I don't even know why maybe it's not getting used. They put the grant information out in January, and it's due February 16th. So you have 1 month to do what you need to do and come up with all the documents and the agreements and everything involved. So that may be why people aren't using it, just why for them, which I will tell them. So I have done my best in that short period of time to get something together. The idea of this grant that what I wanted to do is basically we've kind of identified a need for the students at Change Academy are oftentimes coming with either some behavioral problems, some substance abuse issues, some issues in their relationships, their home life, different things. And I think because of the nature of the way that they are referred and quickly the juvenile probation and kind of move through the process, there isn't a lot of time to assess and refer them for things. So what it looks like in reality is that those behaviors are not ending up being considered as disciplinary, when in fact, what we probably need to be doing is offering services. And for anybody that's been involved in a juvenile disciplinary hearing, what we see as we come to the hearing and the discussion is more, what services can we offer this child? What can you do that hasn't already been done, that kind of thing. So the idea for this grant is the first thing is to help do some early assessment. So Northeastern Center has agreed to partner with us on this. They have agreed to send other staff members over daily for an hour or 2 hours, depending on what they have to talk to and what might be going on that day, to do some early assessment with the participants at Change, see if they might need any services or maybe they don't need any at all at that time, and maybe make those referrals. The students are not going to be funneled to Northeastern Center. Their parent, guardian, and themselves are obviously going to have input on where to get those services. If you have provisions already set them up with something, maybe continue with that. Maybe just be able to give them some extra info on assessments. And then the second function is to help kind of do some crisis management. So our staff isn't necessarily trained to deal with the mental health crisis. They do the best they can using the training they do have in common sense, but it would be nice to have somebody that is seen more as therapeutic to sit with that student, talk with them through what's going on that day, what's the problem, why are we having these issues, and see if that's enough, or maybe that also leads to some kind of referral for a service, or maybe something we didn't know before about that student, or whatever it might be. So this particular grant is 2 years, so it would go July 26th through June 28th, and it would provide that person from our district to come over for a little bit of time every school day for those 2 years.
how much money are you asking?
Just over 100,000. It's almost all for that agreement with Northeastern Center. Their plan is to send a master's level therapist over to do this work. And then in the first year, there's just about, I think it was maybe $300 worth of supplies. We're getting some office supplies for things we might need for file keeping, record keeping, and so forth. And then we wanted to purchase 2 sound diffusing machines, so that when the students meet with the therapist in a small room, they have a change. They put that device either somewhere outside of the room and it helps muffle so other students can't hear into the conversation.
Sounds great. Anybody have any input?
I have a question. So, not exclusively, okay, but I would say probably the bulk people that end up, at least through my quarter in Change Academy, are there through withheld education. It is an agreement between the juvenile council and us to successfully complete the Change Academy program. And I withhold education, and if they successfully complete the case gets dismissed, if they get kicked out, it does happen. Then we enter communication and issue disposition order. That voluntary participation is exactly that. How do you make that? How do you make an educational program encompass mental health and treatment? How do you create the vehicle where that is part of what we do? In other words, I do them as separate things, and I do mental health as being sacrosanct, if you will, and separate from education, which changed design to place. Okay. I don't think there's a roadblock. I think somebody needed to create that. Because you're basically trying to be educational programs requiring people to mental health activities.
Anybody else want?
Somehow you have to put that.
Yeah, so, what we're talking about now is just, our ability to enter the grant before the deadline.
I get it.
If we find out we're in fact awarded the grant, there's gonna be a number of things that can happen, including getting parental permission at intake, having parents sign a piece of information. If there is a referral, we're going to go back to the parent or guardian and explain what that referral is, see where they'd like to go, if they'd like to go, if they're refusing.
Well, that's one of the questions. Are you going to make it a mandatory component of the program so that in order to successfully complete, you must participate? See, in the disposition order, I can order it.
Yes.
We're already, Your Honor, the deal that the prosecutor makes with the defense. Lots of times we already put counseling or lifeline based
But
services
it's
in there.
still, I
It's
know
still
that
voluntary.
this probation, you told me, Your Honor, this probation officer, I know that, but what I'm getting at is, if you agree with me that most of the time when people are ashamed, it is voluntary.
It is voluntary. But almost always, it's, they all want it. It's voluntary, but nobody,
I do understand.
even the child
But
is.
you're going to probably have,
Then we just go ahead, if that's the case, we go ahead and do a regular delinquency petition. There's no withheld adjudication, and you order what you wish.
we can do that. The reason I'm bringing this up, I like, very much, I like planning all over the routes. I guess it's the best way to do that. You can get the grant, exactly ideal in my opinion. The other thing is, I think we're going to get grant, given what I know about pool, if you will, of available funds. And I just believe the grant flow, I think that framework should be talked about, thought about. You end up being disappointed, oh well, you're very prepared to disappoint. That's okay.
And I agree that part of the, rules of Change Academy would be that they be assessed by mental health. And that way, you're right, it falls under.
Follow the recommended treatment, you could simply, that's right, you could simply make that a component of Change Academy program, because that's why I scooted over here and said Michael, because I would be a smart guy like I frequently am. And you said some of the people that Change Academy had behavioral issues, right? And it's famous William Buckley line, don't they all? I think it was they all.
We had a few.
No behavioral issues, why am I putting them in change academy? That should be back in school.
If we could, Michelle and I, as well as the juvenile officers, had some extensive conversations before she took a look at the grant, what she really wanted. If you could take some of a look at maybe what we talked about as real world application, we get the referral. Juvenile probation has a very short window to make a determination that change is going to be there. We get a report on behavior, but we don't see it over an 8-hour day. And we know that walking into change, we're going to have an issue. Referrals can be made by the juvenile probation department, but there is a window in between the time we see them and before they actually start getting that. What Michelle designed appropriately was not to have the teacher at change, not to have Dave out there at change, attempting to deal with that. It's having a true mental health professional waiting for them at the door to say, when they walk into their first couple of days of change and that behavior starts to show itself immediately when they show up, to be like, okay, let's separate from it. Let's talk about what's going on. How can we help you? What else can we do? How can we make this environment better for you? Let's talk about what's really going on at school, here, at home, that we can help you with. They could walk in and immediately have an anxiety attack. We don't want Dave to have to deal with that. We want a mental health professional waiting for them. Hey, how you doing? How can I help you? What's going on? What can we do to settle you down, make you a little bit more comfortable at change? We're not talking about immediate mental health, extensive psychotherapy as they walk in and support. It's that respite care, that immediate help for Dave and the rest of their Change Academy crew to say, this is what I see as a mental health professional. This is how we can support this child. This is how we can get them through between that immediate time that they get there and when they actually start the therapeutic intervention that have already been presented to the parents or have already been asked for by probation.
Yeah, and what it really comes down to is taking an existing excellent program and making it gold standards. But most of the youth that are in the Change Academy program do application. They also have significant other medical issues, including trauma and things like that. So you're taking a program that's really excellent, in my opinion. I deal with it and make it absolutely gold standard. If you do the intervention at the right time, it's the black, but I mean, we access the things I do. But I think we're going to get the grant. Plan it out.
I think the grant application is an excellent idea. I think it's well put together. It's a good plan. I fully support it. I move that the board.
Second. All in favor?
Right.
Alright. Move forward. Yeah. All right, investment of project income funds.
So, before, last fall, we were, those of us that have done university for all under the understanding did not have the ability to invest. Last fall, the folks from DOC Financial informed us that they had spoken with State Board of Accounting that we could in fact do this with our project account, with our CCP accounts. Not obviously with grant funding. So this is something that I wanted to look into, just looking longevity wise at funding for this program, just looking at different ways to have a little more income and different ways for us to feel a little more financially stable. So I did meet with the treasurer's office to speak with them about how they invest other county funds. It seems like there's a solid program and way that they already do this. They gave me some different options and gave me some advice of what they thought that we needed to do. They said the auditor would also have to agree that we had the appropriate funds and she didn't think it would cause any problems for us. So I didn't print a bunch of them, but in the stacks with the annual reports, you'll see there's a graph, like a blue graph. That is from the state, or the Council on State Financial Folders, I believe was the name of the website. But I eventually found they had this cash flow analysis that you can do kind of a template, and so I used it to put in figures from our project income account and shared that with the auditor, and she agreed that she thought that the plan that I had laid out here on the agenda would be appropriate and would not cause any problems. So both the treasurer's office and the auditor's office have agreed that what we want to do is feasible and will probably help us. They have advised to get it done before March, so that's why I have it on this agenda, because we're going to give approval to have it done before March. They seem to think that the rates are going to drop significantly after March. And they also advised to do it in this waterfall pattern where we've had one set at 12, one at 18 months, and one at 24 months, which also obviously gives us a little more fluidity, because we'll be able to access some of the money again at 12 months instead of having it all set up for the 24-month period. So.
Any proposals to invest $375,000? That's the amount.
Yes, that's the amount. All agreed on.
Discussion on that?
What is the actual investment vehicle and what is the rate?
Give me just a second. I have that from the treasurer's office. Yeah, I wanted to break them.
Like certificate of deposit, like money
Yeah.
market? Probably like 3.2 or 3.3.
She said, when speaking to the treasurer's office, they said, that's really good to me when they go. They like, obviously, make sure they're keeping everything safe and refundable. At the end, we're not gonna lose any money. Possible. There it is. She said currently they are getting 3.7%.
She would be responsible for
CDs.
like which, is it all one institution or she's spreading it across? That, would that be her? Like we would approve this and she would choose where that was.
We would approve it, and then the treasurer's office uses their process to determine who, where, all those different.
Make sure it's insured, FTX insurance.
Exactly, yeah, get the best rate they can get us.
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
Anyone else have any input? Well, I entertain a motion that we approve the investment of project income funds.
I'll move forward.
Okay, all in favor? Okay,
Aye.
thank you. Review of reports.
Okay, so I have, as I said, I didn't print one for everyone, but I have laid out my own videos I want to share, but I also did send them in email. So the first was the very long 18-page report of our residential audits. There was one copy around here, so if anybody didn't already see it, but that basically just walks you through every question of our auditors that King had to answer for us. And marked those and possibly some comments that they wrote. Overall, it was very successful. There was the recommendation in our policy on death of a participant in the residential program that if that were to happen, to just add the sentence to remind us that we need to report to our DOC program manager that that has happened. And so I've already added that sentence. So that's that.
I have a comment on the residential audit report. So it's actually 85 pages long
Is it?
because I read it. I am mind boggled by some of the questions they asked. On some of the things they wanted to know, but I wanted to comment on, when we get to the last summary page, I would commend the you folks out here, because the summary was that our program is top of the line. You read the whole 85 pages and you get to the summary of it. They said our residential program out here is one of the best, the way it's being ran and the services that we provide. And I just think that goes a long ways towards Michelle and the staff out here. I'll do a good job. So that's my comment.
To add to that, I sent it out to, I don't know whether it went to just the executive committee or the rest when we got this. One of the things nobody was taking into consideration, that I had to, witness firsthand was the fact in the middle of preparing for that, we had a, what they, now, labeled the cyber incident. And to prepare for this audit, DOC requires that every piece of their policy, administration, procedure are sent down to them. And Michelle had to look at maybe all of that being gone, and deciding whether to go ahead, beg for an extension, do this or that. They had set up a process in the first couple of weeks that we were dealing with that, where every, I know for a fact, every person that was involved in this was pulling old emails, pulling the old just sweeping everything they had to pull all that back together. Now, thank God we got our stuff back and it made it a little bit easier, but it was a stressful time for, I think, everybody in this, under this roof, knowing that those reports go back down, help inform, everybody who's paying attention around the state, whether it's, we're ready to go or grants. We worry that that's one of the other things that they take a look at for those residential grants. So having it come back with that amount of stress was really positive, I think, for me as well, to know that everybody just stopped everything they were doing and started scrubbing everything along with their normal daily duties. So they did a great job.
Very great job. I think really all we're voting on is that the tiny little recommendations they made in the report, that the way they're going to be handled, will be taken care of. I mean, there was a section there about how hot to keep the water in a building. It was mind-boggling. So you guys did a great job. So I'm going to entertain a vote that Michelle.
This one doesn't do that.
Oh, don't you vote? All right. Okay, go ahead.
The second one is the annual report. That one requires a vote because there is a section on the last page for recommendations for any modifications of the community corrections, improvements, ending any programs, anything of that nature that the board would like to discuss and vote on. And if there isn't any, which is the language that I already have at the end of the draft of the annual report, then on the annual report, which does get sent then on to commissioners and council and DOC. So I guess now would be the time to talk about any concerns, questions about the annual report, recommendations.
I have a question at some point about something in the report that's basically, educated. First of all, if somebody will explain, so everybody, I think everybody does know, if you explain what that is.
Do you need transition numbers?
Yes, you okay. Make sure I want everybody on the same page. Maybe everybody already knows, maybe they don't, let's go ahead.
Okay. In statute, the Department of Corrections has the ability to request that counties, whether that's community corrections, some counties that don't have it because of the probation department, it would accept offenders to be released early from the Department of Corrections to begin doing transition work in the community at the end of their sentence. It depends on what level their offense was, how long they would be released early for, and during that period, they actually remain property, as they say, of the Department of Corrections. And if they have any violations, they get returned immediately back to the DOC to serve the rest of their sentence.
Okay. So
When we accept those cases, if we find them eligible, believe there's somebody we can work with, we accept those cases, the DOC does actually pay us a daily fee to supervise those people.
okay, so here's the question. Thank you. Here's the question. When you look through the report, you see these really high success percentages. And I find 60% success that CTP people will be president. And I wonder why, because they've been to the DOC, they received DOC programming. They don't get to go on CTP unless they've been, I know they haven't been careful, it's a very considered thing, so when we look at any type of process, why are we opening out 60%? What is causing that, or what is the nature of the population causing that 40% better?
Well, I think the first thing we have to consider is the nature of people that are sent to DOC to serve their sentence in the first place. Makes them probably have higher criminal history, probably be higher risk. So we're already talking about kind of the top portion of the people that we serve in the program. They're more likely to have violations. They are more likely to have issues when they come out to us. I think the second part of that we have to consider is our number of CTP people that we have served is so low that any amount of them returning to prison is going to become a high percentage. So I think, we work with criminal offenders who don't always make the best decisions. They don't make rational decisions. And so even though we are trying to provide them services and all the interventions we can think of, they don't always accept that.
I consider myself educated. Thank you.
I would add, our intake specialists actually, they do a report, they come back, they give us behavior information, DOC and everything else. With nonviolent offenders, they may still have the problem in DOC. We also, when you talk about reintroducing them to society, we really really don't like to go to RWF. So they're going straight from full incarceration to community. Because we go RWF, we're not really putting them in a position to reintegrate. It's a little bit slower. Some do. Some of them at a higher risk level, we think, yeah, maybe we'll start with RWF and move them kind of out. And we have to remember society and that freedom is where they have the problems, the decision-making issues. We honestly, through the screening board, with nonviolent offenders, we are taking chances here and there to try and reintegrate. The chances I would say that we take on screening board are a lot more with an addiction-related issue, self-harm, than community harm. But with that, we do know that we're taking a little bit more of a risk with a high-rate offender when we bring CDP.
But I don't want to create that wrong picture for people either. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am. When you say taking chances, we are still talking about in the foreseeable future, okay, are going to be released from the DOC anyways back into the community. So what you're doing is you're providing services to try to integrate them so that they'll be successful. Not taking chances with releasing somebody that wouldn't be released otherwise. Your chance is simply advancing the time frame so that they can be in society for a while under monitoring rather than unmonitored. Okay?
Correct. And a step down. I mean, a huge portion of a statement that Ms. Knepper will use pretty regularly is probation, you're going to give them anyway. So let's see if we can get them stable in the community before they hit that even larger version of freedom, which is probation. So being on the monitor, being beholden, having weekly expectations to give a full calendar of what you're doing every day and see whether they have the ability to function in that level and then slowly bring them into probation.
I do want to add some of it too with the idea that they're going to DOC and getting treatment. I don't know if you guys are aware, Westville is under construction. If they are 365 or less, they're not getting tablets, they're not getting treatment, they're not getting anything.
Oh, I know that.
So the people that we're getting, not all of them have gone through treatment. Some of them are just incarcerated. So we do take risk on those ones without treatment, without progress, without, they're staying there stationary, but they haven't had any write-ups. But they're using because they're not getting caught.
I did not know that, although I would probably, there's some love for that.
We deal with it on the back end, but if they're 365 or less.
Can I ask you a question too? Just one of them was actually yesterday. So in the last month, I've had two private clients recommended from Department of Corrections for CDP. One was yesterday that I got the denial from the advisory board, both sex offenders. Is it the step thing that in this county, we aren't going to accept CDP sex offenders because we don't have the ability to monitor them? Just helping me advise my clients when I tell them you might have the possibility of getting down to 180 days early on their sentence.
The issue is the safety. Should a sexual offender, I do sex offender supervision for probation. The issue, and as I explained to the defendants, is if you were to have an issue on EMHD, you would have to be held, the reactive would be RWF, and we have administrative rules against placing sexual offenders in RWF because we can't guarantee their safety. Because the next CTP or somebody else, there are some, I guess, the layman's term would be prison rules that say if you see a sex offender, it's on site is what they use that, which means violence. And right now, we are all very protective of our environment. We have a very successful environment, we have a nonviolent environment, we have a rehabilitative environment in the back, and so we're very protective of that. So there's administrative rules for their protection as well as the environment.
So tell our new people what RWF and the electronic monitoring home detention is.
Oh, well, residential work facility, and first electronic monitoring home detention, which is the box.
Yeah, those were those initials. Right. Okay. So what are we actually voting on?
Well, the motion would be either that there's no recommendation from the board for modifications, improvements, or discontinuation of any of our programs, or an alternate motion would be if we're in favor of any changes, improvements, or modifications.
Well, I think this time I entertain a motion that we recommend that for the time there are no recommendations for modifications, improvements, or that we discontinue any programs. That motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Second. All right. On favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The other two reports that I sent out in email, and also there's a copy thing around, are our disciplinary hearing board report. It is very similar to what it has been in prior years, so I didn't see any major changes, differences in response, differences in numbers, or anything of that nature. Does anyone have questions about that report? Okay. And the fourth one is our annual grievance report. Anybody on our post supervision has the ability to write a grievance if they feel like they have been mistreated in some way, that we aren't following policy, they have something about staff member, anything of that nature. And that is available both for those in the residential facility and for those that are on home detention. So this report just kind of summarizes our grievance for the year. We had 7. And if you look at the chart, it has been drastically decreasing each year, which I think, for us, just kind of shows that we are doing our best to be consistent, be fair, have all of our participants aware of expectations so they know what may or may not be happening. And then just kind of break it down into what those 7 were about. We didn't receive any from electronic monitoring. These were all from residential facility residents. So we had about a third of them were actually complaining about another resident they were living in the same unit with. A third of them was a complaint about a specific staff action, which is two grievances. One was about somebody's question about their sanction. We did actually look at their sanction, their sentence. We on that one did actually look at it and found that we did need to adjust their release date, so that was done. And the last one was somebody's schedule got lost and they had to rewrite it. I did not want to write any of those minutes. There they are. Okay. Any questions about that?
The next one's pretty simple. We have to follow the open door policies here for our meetings, so we have to post all of our meeting dates. And I would just entertain a motion that we can approve those dates for the upcoming year for our next meeting. All right, respect that. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Great. Update electronic monitoring.
So whenever we would like to update the order, which is basically the rules for any of our participants during the program, that's something we bring to advisory board. This is a simple addition. We had a specific issue with somebody in the residential facility program who was questioning and following the rule and saying that they weren't sure where it said they had to follow that rule. It was contained in our handbook, but then they questioned whoever said they had to follow the handbook. Which I believe was already covered in the wording, but just in case, we want to go ahead and add the bolded section that says including the residential facility handbook, if I'm understanding that level.
Anyone have any questions on that? Seems like a no-brainer. All right. So can I have a motion that we approve adding that language in our rules? Second, please. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. Any more updates?
Last few things I have, the DOC has announced grant funding for 2027. It is again reduced. We are asking questions and the understanding of that decision and where that funding is going. Interestingly enough, since we just talked about CTP, they are doubling the funding for CTP, which means they're taking that away from the grant amounts. So obviously they are in a push to have more people supervised on CTP. The rest is still kind of under question. Our next meeting, as we voted, will be March 27th. At that time, we'll be turning in the adult grant, and hopefully I have some more information by then that I can share with everybody. Second thing under updates is there is a bill right now for community corrections to be able to run comp series, same wording as sheriff's offices have at this point. So it actually, so I wrote that it passed third reading Senate, but on Wednesday it actually passed the House Committee for criminal. So it's going to be moving on to the full House. I don't have a date for that yet, but I am watching that one pretty closely because that has been obviously the sheriff knows kind of an issue for us that he's been helping us out with. So I will provide an update on that as I get it. Whether that passes or it dies, we'll find out.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other business they want to talk about?
I apologize. The one thing I forgot, it is part of that is explain the new juvenile grant, but one of the things that myself, Michelle, and juvenile officer worked on the last couple months was approved for us to be able to place juveniles on electronic monitoring long haul, which means an emergency Friday, Saturday night, if they fit the risk categories, law enforcement can make that request. We would be able to place them directly on. Secondarily, we were able to go to the Council of Commissioners and get an approval for what they would call a care inmate fund, with the ability to place juvenile electronic monitor for those who don't have the ability to be examined, but don't have the ability to financially afford electronic monitoring, which at times could put them at risk, continued behavior, then be placed at risk for detention. Now monitoring the costs and things of that nature myself with the both the juvenile department and Michelle, we have 6 or 7 that have been through the programming. Ultimately, 90% are self-pay, but we do have one that's not. If you were to take a look at that cost savings of $7 a day versus the possibility of low end $200 a day, we've spent about $500 on one juvenile. We normally, if you're talking about detention costs, that's $12,000. That amount of savings for us, which allows us that reactivity. But it's we haven't had as much use of the on-call one, not that I'm asking for it. I don't need any more, but it's still out there. But having 6 or 7 of those juveniles and having that reactivity has been, it really worked out well for us, both financially as well for the juveniles. We had one that we were concerned may or may not make it through change and is doing great. And hopefully we'll be done. A couple other ones that, are being monitored as closely as we can. So I just want to make sure that you guys understood, after we asked for that. We are using it. It is going great, for us.
Actually, it's actually really great because it gives me a necessary tool sometimes. I really couldn't justify it because the academic certification was there, but it's actually what, it's great to have that option. The one for the immediate detention of the kids, that hasn't apparently been, it just hasn't happened yet, but it's also really great because you need to understand what happens to your sheriff, which is you grab a kid on, we did, then you've got to get them into a secure facility, and we don't have very many, and they're understaffed, and they have a staff to bed ratio, they might have empty beds, they don't have enough staff, so you can't put them there. The sheriff is literally sometimes in a situation of driving people all the way down to south of Indianapolis to take a juvenile from here, to put them there. And then I have told them here in 48 hours, I gotta go get them and bring them back. And then if I continue detention, I gotta take them back down there. I mean, it's very labor intensive. A lot of miles on county vehicles too. So it's really great that we get to, for the appropriate situation, we have the ability to get that and do something different. So I'm actually hopeful that we'll see them do the utility.
There's a statute in the state of Indiana that says least restrictive. Every time you do a juvenile, you look at all the risks, the crime, all the available information, but you still have to make determinations on what the least restrictive is. And this gives us more options to make sure that we're following that statute. So.
Anyone else? Reminder,
Since the board has approved the behavioral health grant for juveniles that we want to get turned in, we did have to write a collaboration plan, and I sent that out to those that have asked to sign that collaboration plan. So if you were one of those people, please stay and sign this paper for me.
who are those people? Those stay.
Judge Brand, Chief Levels, yourself.
Neil's here.
Mr. Peters and Mr. Oliver, who's on the virtual. So I'll get this later.
All right, so our next meeting is March 27th, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.